Hey guys, how's it going? Rudy here. There's a subject I've been wanting to kind of speak about, and it's this idea that I kind of proposed maybe like, it was either a year ago or maybe like 8 months ago. The video didn't get very many views, and I'll put a link in the description. I'll put an image that shows the thumbnail that I use, and it's this idea of two souls in one body. And what got me kind of thinking about this again is what happened when my father died when I was 5. I've never talked about this before, but when I was a kid, maybe like 6, 7, 8, I used to have nightmares, like really bad nightmares of, well, to me anyway, they were nightmares. To a little kid, to a little boy, they were nightmares because they were basically visions of angels and my father with angel wings and all kinds of weird like symbolism, like symbology. And those went on for a while, and I used to wake up with night terrors, essentially. Like, I remember this happening pretty often where I would wake up terrified, like, after I had these kind of dreams. And I remember telling my mother about it, and she didn't know what to do. I'm not entirely sure if I remember. I could be misremembering this because it was so many years ago, but they may have actually even took me to a priest and tried to talk through it. I don't think he did anything crazy to me, like blessed me or anything nutty like that. But at any rate, these were reoccurring dreams, and I remember when I was young, I just wanted them to stop. I would have dreams about like Jesus and the Sacred Heart of Jesus, where, you know, that imagery where Jesus is pointed to his heart and he's like on fire. That kind of imagery really stuck out in my mind, I guess. I don't know if it was just the trauma and the very striking imagery of seeing Jesus and seeing angels and whatnot. I don't know what that has, how much that has to do with culture, or what that has to do with the human unconsciousness, like the collective unconsciousness that we all share, the symbology that we all share, the repeating symbols in history. I don't know if the way I was brought up has more to do with that than the human collective unconscious. So take it with a grain of salt, but that's what happened to me. I used to have pretty vivid dreams about angels and my dead father. Like I said before, I watched him had the stroke that killed him, so that's it's very clear in my head when it happened. Literally watched him have a stroke and die in front of me. And I would have dreams about him, like reoccurring dreams about him with angel wings and whatnot. And I remember very specifically, this is going to kind of go back to, I think I may have talked about this in a few videos where I talked about how I don't get on my knees and pray because I don't think it's necessary. You have a spiritual connection with your Father in heaven already, so there's no need to get on your knees and put your hands together and pray. You can just speak to your Father whenever you need to, and that's what I believe. When I say Father, I mean God. I mean spiritual Father in heaven. So it's like, but back then, no one sat me down and explained this to me. And I don't remember if it was my mother or somebody else. They told me something along the lines of get on your hands and knees and just pray to God and try to speak to your Father. They didn't tell me what to say, but I remember specifically doing this. I remember getting on my bedside. It was the middle of the night. I got on my bedside, I got on my hands and knees and put my hands in the prayer position, the stereotypical prayer position. And I asked my Father to leave me alone, to just rest in peace, like, I'll be okay, something along those lines. I remember having those very specific kind of, I don't remember exactly what I said or thought, but the gist of it was, I wanted my Father to rest and not worry about me. And the dream stopped after that. It's like, like a strange manifestation, psychological, spiritual, something. I can't even explain it. But anyway, I've never really told this to anybody except for one other person kind of recently where we're talking about it. And I've always had these crazy ideas that, especially after I forgave my father, that him and I were one and the same. Like, him and I shared a body, like two souls in a body. But it's like once I forgive him, suddenly we were one soul in one body, and it was whole again. I wasn't split psychologically anymore. It's like I understood the nature of all things, and the nature of fatherhood, and the nature of what it's like to be a son of God. It was like instant knowledge in the blinking of an eye. The moment I reunited with my dad, it was like the knowledge of my ancestors came flooding in. And that was my father's knowledge that he wasn't even aware that he had. And it's like I've talked about this a lot, where I say that he died at the perfect moment, and I tell my daughter that when I pass on, when I expire, I'll die at the perfect moment. And there's no need to be sad, because the chess pieces are moving the way they need to move. Even if you're a pawn, be grateful that you're a pawn, because you're still in the game. Regardless, even pawns have their use in the game. And I know that seems maybe that seems like I'm on the side of evil, or the side of not good. Let's just say it that way. The side of a dark reality, or a sinister shadow. It may seem like I'm on their side, but they're playing their role as well. They're stuck in this shitty game. Well, maybe not so shitty. I take that back. They're stuck in this game of 5D chess. Let's put it that way. Like a 5-dimensional chessboard where the pawns are being moved around. And even if you are a pawn, you're still in the game, and you have a purpose, a greater purpose. Because a pawn can, I don't know how many people out there play chess, but I haven't played chess since I left high school, but I do remember that, the position of your pawns can make a huge difference in the way the game plays out in the long run. So it's not like you treat those pawns willy-nilly. You have respect for them, you have reverence for them, and that might be like people like me and you. But I don't know. I'm still thinking about that. So, but that's not what this video is necessarily about. This is more akin to this idea that I've talked about in the past, where it's possible there's two souls in one body. And it's like when my dad died, when my father passed, it was it's like his soul, his spirit wanted to be a part of me. And but it was too much for a small child to take, like a 5-year-old little boy to comprehend. It was too much knowledge. Like, the knowledge of your ancestors is way too much for a small child. They don't have the mental capacity, or maybe not even the spiritual capacity. It's like trying to fill a small flask with a whole jug of water, a whole gallon of water, and it's just spilling outwards. Like, the vessel isn't it's not the right kind of vessel yet, but it'll grow into the correct kind of vessel with time. And 30 years later, I forgave him. I reunited with my father. I forgave my mother. And forgiving my mother was like a different set of knowledge, like two books. Like, forgiving the father was one book of knowledge, and forgiving the mother was another book entirely. But you need both tomes, like huge. Think of like huge tomes of huge tomes of knowledge that suddenly you have the infinite capacity to understand. And my father's was the tomb of the knowledge of our ancestors, and the mother was the knowledge of good and evil. That's what it felt like when I think back on it, when I'm thinking about it now with my adult brain. With that adult intellect that's supposed to be used as a tool, and not used as I'm not sure how to explain it. All right. to get back into it, I'll explain what I mean by the knowledge of good and evil and how it relates to the mother. So, when you forgive your mother, when you truly forgive, and just to reiterate, all forgiving means is realizing that you're wrong for hating her, because she's done crazy things to you in her past. But just having an understanding that she was traumatized as well in some way. Like me, for instance. And it really did feel like in an instant where I forgave her. I apologized to her for hating her. I realized for myself, about myself, that it was wrong for me to hate her the way I was. So I apologized for that, and I forgave her for the things that she did to me. Realizing that she couldn't help herself because she was being controlled by spirits that she had no clue about. And if she only knew, she would probably she would have done the right thing. And in her mind, and in her own mind, she was doing the right thing because she wasn't taught by a good example in her parents. So that was all the more reason to forgive her. She was just trying her best. And it was the moment I forgave her was the moment I attained. And the moment I forgave her is when I had the sudden knowledge of good and evil. And what I mean by that is realizing that all people have gone through what I've gone through. And all people have gone through what my mother has gone through with her parents and their grandparents and etc. And it just keeps going back and back and back. This trauma, this ongoing ancestral trauma has been going on since the dawn of man, since the dawn of time, going all the way back to the singularity, back to Adam and Eve, and the trauma that they went through, starting with Eve. And Adam was a simp as well, so it's like I'm not letting Adam off the hook, because it was a collaboration between Adam and Eve to listen to the serpent. And the funny part about it is they were warned about the serpent, and the serpent was, just from the mere fact of being a serpent, they should have known that he was up to no good. And there's a debate of whether or not the serpent was Lucifer or whatever, and Lucifer would be the fallen angel. But that's besides the point. Once I had the realization that all people have gone through this mommy trauma, is when I understood all human beings, and that was the knowledge of good and evil. And since I had forgave my father before, I was already an empty vessel for this knowledge. So when I forgave him, I'll explain what I mean by the knowledge of my ancestors. Like I said, you can think of it as two giant tomes of knowledge. One tome of good and evil, and the other tome of the knowledge of your ancestors, which would be, everybody before me. My grandparents, their great-great-grandparents, etc. Going all the way back to Adam and Eve. And it's like once I reunited with my father, I was connected back to the source, which would be God, because God works through the Father. And that this goes for ladies too. Any ladies out there, you're the daughter of your father, and that's inescapable. You can't escape that. And there's a bit of a cultural kickback going on right now that's been going on probably since the dawn of man, starting with Eve, Cain and Abel, etc. But it's in recent history. If I were to name a recent history, it would be the hippie movement. The baby boomer generation really began kicking back on fatherhood and the family unit, the nuclear family. Because the boomer generation, the baby boomer generation, the 70s hippies, they were the result of the nuclear family, uprising. Not uprising, but that, the quintessential white picket fence, 2 kids and a dog, 2 kids and a half, or however the saying goes. A nice house with a picket fence and all that. And that was the quintessential family. That was a nuclear family. And so it was the baby boomers who kind of came off from that. Like if you ever watch old 50s TV, where it has that perfect, family, that perfect Caucasian family. That's where the baby boomers came from. That's where the hippie movement came from. It was a rebellion. It was a kickback from that, and we're still feeling the effects of that. Because today's liberal movement, and the conservative movement too, actually, that's a whole different can of worms. But the liberals are all about disrespecting their fathers and getting away from their fathers, trying to find their identity through other things, through material things, through their sexuality, trying to find, the whole trans thing, the whole lesbian thing, the whole gay thing. That's all the great-great-grandparents. That's all the great-grandkids of the boomers that are still living out that rebellion. They got that rebellious nature, that Satan nature, and it comes through the woman, first and foremost. And a lot of people aren't going to like that kind of language, but it is what it is, man. Because I'm telling you, I've seen it for myself. I've seen way too many, and it's all anecdotal, but I've seen way too many examples of this mommy drama, this woman drama. That's always seems to come about from the females. And you'll find males too who are doing this. So I'm not letting them off the hook either. You got a lot of simps. You got beta male orbiters who, cling to women. They make friends with women, and they're just kind of like weak and pathetic around them. You have some women who will have multiple male friends because deep down they know they can't trust other women, so they kind of hang around males that'll kind of stroke their egos. And subconsciously they know that they can't be around women or other girls, other young women, because they're just toxic. They know that. Subconsciously they know that. Even though they'll claim, women's empowerment and girl power and all that. It's all bullshit. It's all a bunch of horse shit coming from the hippie gen. So anyway, the Spirit of God, the Spirit of the Father comes through the males, through the men. So the moment I reunited with my father, and the moment I forgave my father for, dying when I was 5, that was the main thing I had to forgive him for, which I'm sure sounds insane to a lot of people, but it is what it is. I can't help the way I felt back then. I was a little kid, so I bear no responsibility for that. I never had an adult in my life tell me otherwise or try to correct me. And you'll find that a lot where the family won't speak up or say, your father loved you. Like he didn't want to leave you. His body just expired. If that makes sense. And that's the way I conceptualize now. And I tell my daughter, look, when I die, I'll die at the perfect moment. And you may not understand that now, but you will. Maybe you will when you're an adult, or the day I die. Maybe you'll understand what I mean. And that's the best I can do, is just talk to her about these things, because nobody sat me down and talked to me about these things. And I'm sure a lot of you who are listening, this is the first time you've heard this from anybody, which is to love your fathers. It's such an odd thing to say in the considering the way the culture's headed right now, which is very anti-male, anti-masculine, anti-dad, anti-father atmosphere that we're living in right now. And it's hell on earth because of that, because there's too much woman spirit, too much mommy spirit, especially not to get political, but especially in these liberal democratic cities where the crime rate is just out of control. And you'll have these cities ran by females who are just weak, or very weak. They won't crack down on the violence. They won't crack down on the stealing and killing. And they're just making a hellhole even a worse hellhole, like an abyss. But back to the subject at hand, I kind of got off on a tangent. The knowledge of my ancestors, like a bolt of lightning. And I remember I was actually working. I was in the middle of the aisle working out the paper goods. That's how significant it was that I remember exactly what I was doing when it happened. That I already explained in one of my other videos is the Jordan Peterson biblical lecture, that made me realize these things, that I'm the result of my ancestors, including my father, and that I am my father. And it was like in the blinking of an eye, it's like our souls were reunited, because I rejected him when I was a child. Like I explained before, I rejected him because my mind was not prepared for it. My spirit wasn't prepared. The vessel was too small. Now that I'm a big boy, the vessel's good to go. And he came back to me in that moment. I know that sounds schizo to a lot of y'all, but that's the way I feel. It feels so basic. It seems so structural and axiomatic that it's the absolute truth that you're accumulation of your ancestors. You are, like, you can't even dispute that. Common sense alone will tell you that. You don't need a scientist telling you that. You don't need some expert telling you that. You don't need a guru telling you that. And people don't even want to have these discussions. They don't want to hear about their fathers. They don't want to hear about their ancestors because they just resent it. I'll give you a good example. You'll find a lot of people, especially Caucasians, who hate their skin color. They're embarrassed to be white. They're embarrassed to be Caucasian. So they do these little DNA tests to kind of prove that, oh look, I'm 20% Filipino, or I'm 10% Spaniard, and it looked like I got ancestors in the Middle East, and they're so quick to like jump on that. And I know people like that. They're so proud of it. And my wife took a DNA test too, and ancestry test or whatever they're called, and I think she just did it for fun. She's not embarrassed to be white or anything like that, because I tell her all the time, look, you got Irish, Scottish ancestry. That's something to be proud of. Even though she doesn't know much about it. I mean, you don't have to, in my opinion. Or not being proud maybe is not the right word. But I'm saying don't be embarrassed by it, because that's ridiculous. You should embrace what you were born with, because you were put on this earth as your specific race for a reason. And you run into a lot of Caucasians that are trying to get away from it because they don't want to be labeled a racist or something. Something weird like that. This white guilt thing pisses me off. Maybe being pissed off isn't the right word, but it annoys the shit out of me. Let's just put it that way. Because I'm not saying to embrace it, but to at least acknowledge it, that you come from a lineage of something in some part of the world that a lot of people maybe aren't agreeing with right now, because they've been lied to by the school system. For instance, if you got British or whatever ancestry, y'all brought the slaves over, or whatever the fuck they'll say. And it's like, well, the people that are living now didn't bring slaves over, so I don't get what the problem is. Like, we're all here now, let's make the best of it, but instead, we're being taught to hate each other for it. Just more division, right? More animal farms to separate us. Like, you got the cows over here, and the chickens over here, and the horses over here, and the pigs over here. Just separate animal farms for everybody. And you have the media gaslighting everybody about, oh, you should embrace your blackness, or embrace your Latino-ness, or your Hispanicness, or whatever. And it's just disgusting, absolutely disgusting behavior. Because if there's anybody out there who was into the culture thing, your culture, the people in your culture and your family, they're going to be the first ones to gaslight you, to take advantage of you, to be, hey, aren't you black? Like, I'm black too. Like, why are you treating me this way? It's like, no, don't fall for that. They're just trying to manipulate you. I saw it all the time with my family. Latino families, they're really tight knit. It's all mama centric. Catholicism is all about women, all about females. It's very female centric. They worship the Virgin Mary, and she's higher tier than Jesus himself, to most Catholics, majority of Catholics. And it's disgusting, like really disgusting. It's supposed to be the son who takes the spotlight, but even in the Bible, Mary was following her son around to the day he died, and to me that's really telling. And even in the Bible, you can't get away from this kind of grotesque, ancestral, incest mama spirit that even in the Bible you'll see it. And this is what I mean, guys. Like, I know I've got way off on a tangent here, but I think I got my point across about the ancestor thing. And it's very telling when shit like this is in the Bible, and they can't lie about it. Like the mythology, the mythos. You and I are just living out the mythology. We're living out the mythos. We can't help it because that's the story of human beings. And I think that's what I mean by, and I'm still discovering this, guys, so don't take my word for it 100%. And I think that's what I mean by the knowledge of my ancestors. It's like, I realized that I was playing out the mythology when I was asleep, and I still am to this day. You can't help it. Like these TV shows, when I talked about Dennis the Menace, go watch that. These boomer shows, like Dennis the Menace, Laverne and Shirley, blah, blah, blah. Like, these shows can't help but show the mythology. They'll show the mythos. And mythos doesn't mean fiction. Mythology just means these deeply embedded stories in the human psyche that we can't escape, these behaviors that we can't escape. And the Bible is absolutely full of that to the brim with these kind of stories. Anyway, guys, I think I got it off my chest the way I wanted to get it off. If you have questions, just leave a comment. Leave a comment, guys. Share it with your friends. Have a nice morning. Bye-bye.